Welcome to Uncomfortable, conversations about culture and Christianity. My name is Eric, and today I'm joined by Rachel.
Hey, y'all.
And Jess.
Hello, world.
And Alex.
Hey.
It's Fat Albert.
I know.
Sorry. Yes. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for another exciting installment of the Uncomfortable podcast.
Yes.
We're going to be starting out by stealing a little bit from our headlines segment. This won't actually be a headline, but it is a headline, if that makes sense.
I smell what you're stepping in.
Omaha announces new names and mascots for high schools.
OPS.
You got the Bison and the Wolverines. And we thought it would be fun to just discuss a little bit our own high school mascots. And hopefully they were not racist or anything like that. A lot of those have changed over the years. Who would like to begin? Who has the best mascot?
Because this hits home. It's OPS, Omaha Public Schools. I am an OPS graduate. From actually the closest high school to where we're recording right now, Burke High School. So we were the Burke Bulldogs.
Okay.
So black and gold were our colors, and let's get it on the rebound. That's a cheer.
Oh, okay.
I just remember when I was playing basketball, it was one of those cheers. Let's get it on the rebound.
Oh.
Or they'd spell out
Terrible dating advice.
Let's go.
That's what I'm thinking.
I was trying to think of a cheer that had spelled out Bulldogs, and that's what came out.
That's what stuck with you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Go Burke Bulldogs.
All right.
But it was great because that's right about the time that Who Let the Dogs Out came out.
Oh my! I
Could
bet.
not have been a better
Perfect
time.
segue.
Yeah, great timing.
Yeah. Wow.
To your school, Jess?
Oh, no, I was saying perfect segue. Who let the dogs out to the Bulldogs? But we can talk about mine.
Yeah, what was your mascot?
My lack of a mascot. I was homeschooled all the way through high school. So I did not, I guess, have an official mascot.
Oh.
But a little tie to Burke High School. That's where I took the ACT.
Okay. Great.
So you're a
Your parents had to
bulldog.
go
guy.
So I mean,
A
I
Bulldog
don't even,
for a couple hours?
Yeah, for a couple hours. So it was kind of, I don't know, now when you brought this up, that we were going to talk about this, I love, because my kids go to school, and so I love their mascot. They have an eagle. So
Very
maybe that's why
patriotic.
I'm like super into it.
You
Because
guys
I didn't have
even
one.
have like a homeschool mascot, like an unofficial mascot?
Like if I had a mascot based on pets I had, a hamster. Like
Okay.
that's lame.
Yeah. I think
We had some ducks.
one of the things that at least OPS does, and you can see it even in this, is they always name their mascot after like the first letter typically of the school.
Oh, okay.
So Burke Bulldogs, Benson Bunnies, you've got
Oh, is that a real one?
yeah, Benson
What?
Bunnies.
What?
No, what about
Bunnies?
Northwest?
North is different.
Northwest Huskies?
Yeah, and
Okay,
Omaha North
I'm
is
still
different, but
shook by bunnies.
Aw,
Like, what
that's
is
so sad. How do
Like,
you
that's
make
not a very
that? Yeah.
threatening.
Millard
Bunnies
West
are
Wildcats, Millard North, Mustangs,
I like that we are adding sound effects. So.
That's good.
the
Okay.
Running Rabbits. That's what they call themselves in basketball. So.
All right.
Well, I think I'm going to beat all of you at this point. I was homeschooled until high school, so I didn't
Okay.
have a mascot, but I did in high school, and it was the Wampus Cat,
Whoa.
Okay.
which is a mythical creature.
Ooh.
And it has 4 legs to run with all its might and 2 legs to fight. So
Oh,
it
wow.
has 6
She
legs.
got you. She got you on the cheer.
So, I mean, I don't know how you can beat that.
I'm glad you went. Oh, wait.
I haven't gone yet.
I'm glad you went last, but Eric?
I was going to say, I can beat you all with lameness.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Well,
If you want the lamest, worst mascot you can ever imagine, worse than the bunnies, we were the Central High Cobblers.
Not
What?
Omaha Central.
No, Rapid City, South Dakota was where I went to high school. We were the Central High Cobblers.
Cobblers,
my.
like.
Shoe cobblers.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure. I was
Okay.
like, did you do roads?
Nope.
Did you do fruit pie?
That's what I was thinking.
kind of
Apple,
cobblers were you?
peach,
Nope,
blueberry.
not a fruit cobbler.
Or street cobbler?
But
like
a
I think
shoe
A
cobblestone.
shoe cobbler.
The mascot kind of like the 80s Husker. What's his face? What's his
Herbie?
name? Herbie. Yeah. our mascot kind of looked like Herbie, but he had an apron on because he was a cobbler.
Because he had to shine the shoes, I guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, you didn't
Interesting.
Now,
fix
is that
them.
still?
I don't know. Now I'm curious. I'm sure it's got to be right. They wouldn't change that.
Mine definitely is still the Bulldogs. So I think I win the most like unoriginal. There's probably every school in America has a Bulldog.
There's a bulldog somewhere.
You just win the most wild, Rachel. I'm just giving awards out right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eric the lamest and
Yeah,
Jess,
thank you.
you win. Not
This-
included.
Disqualified.
Disqualified.
Wow.
well, let's see. When I go to
Did not finish.
their website, it still says Go Cobblers, and the domain is centralcobblers.com.
Oh, wow.
So
What were the colors? What were the cobbler
red
colors?
and white.
Okay.
Okay.
How about
Yeah.
the Wampus Cats?
Blue and white.
Blue and white.
Yeah.
And we were the black and gold. So, what are these new high schools, though? The new high schools are the Bison. I think the Buena Vista Bison, which is going to be an OPS school down more south, and then west of you, Wolverines.
Wolverines, yeah.
And that'll be kind of by the Bennington area, that high school.
Wow.
So,
That's cool.
They seem like fitting mascots. I just still can't get over the bunnies. It's so not intimidating.
bunny.
It's just
The bunny.
not, anyways.
that's probably the song that they used instead of Who Let the Dogs Out. They always love the Veggie Tale song.
All right. Well, I'm glad none of us were too traumatized by our mascots. They all seem to be okay.
I'm fine.
It's just we made shoes, I guess, rah. But
You need 6 shoes to cover
Yeah.
Rachel's mascot.
yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
I would.
Unless the one hands are fight hands.
Yeah,
like
they're
you said.
running and these hands are punching. So it's like
It's a great clarification. All right. Up next, we have headlines. Our first headline comes from EW.com. That's Entertainment Weekly. It says Justin Bieber's surprise Freedom EP has fans feeling blessed. If you were, maybe off social media this past Easter Sunday, you might have missed this. But Justin Bieber dropped an EP.
It's a banger.
And it's called Freedom. And it was a surprise. People were not prepared, didn't know. He had just released his Justice album.
Yeah.
And so I don't think people were expecting an EP. But here it was. Anyone listened to it?
I listened to it. I think it was like 5 or 6
Songs, yeah?
yeah.
Yeah.
songs.
Yeah, we listened to it while we were making our dinner on Easter.
Oh,
Easter
okay.
Sunday. We
Yeah.
were like, "Oh wow, okay, let's hear it."
Alex, you listened?
I did listen to it. The little Judah Smith in there, pastor, he's got his own little,
Like kind of a prayer in there.
yeah, that, I don't remember
Or
what,
spoken
he's on
word.
2 of them. And like the one part, I was like, okay, you could have dropped a few of those, but yeah, I listened to it. I got a few texts about it because people know I've got and have been struck by Bieber fever, not Beaver fever, Bieber fever in the past. And so, a lot of people wanted to make sure I knew that this came out, especially at first, honestly, when I did like see it on social media, I was like, yeah, he did a few weeks ago. What do you mean? And then
okay, yeah.
because he just released that album and I was slightly disappointed in his last album, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Because of some of the language. Peaches is a song that I was like, oh man, I like it.
That would've been so
I could get
good.
down with it, but why do you have to say all those words?
I can't ask Alexa to play that one.
In front of my
Yeah.
and for me it's about like my kids. Like I'm not
Yeah.
overly offended by like
Right.
bad language, but also like I could play Blessed here, I feel like on a playlist, but I probably can't play Peaches on a playlist.
Can I
in the
give you
office.
a hot take or a hot tip?
Yes.
Well, if you're an Apple Music user, right? Or are you Spotify?
Spotify. I'm a
okay.
Spotify guy.
Well, I guess this is only for the Apple Music listeners. When you go to an album, if you scroll to the bottom, the alternative edited versions of those albums are below.
Oh yeah.
A lot of times, not all of them have them available. But
Here's another hot tip: just
Kids
get
Bop?
the Kids Bop version,
Kids Bop
and
version.
you're good to go.
Yeah. I know that hot tip.
Oh, that's a good one.
yeah, it's this album was. I didn't personally enjoy the Justice album too much. But yeah, this was a different kind of hit a little differently.
Yeah.
there were just some songs in there that I think. I was talking to a friend of the podcast who's been on here before, Ian Wilsey. He was the first to tell me about this when it dropped, and and I was talking to him about it, and I think there's a messiness to new Christians, that sometimes people who have been churched a long time or grew up in the church, we kind of want to clean that away and scrub it off really quick, and I think where there was debates with Kanye West too. Like, is he really a Christian? Is Justin really a Christian? Are these celebrity pastors really Christians? Whatever. But I think in so many ways the church needs this right now. They need that honesty. They need to hear from people who aren't from the church, who are now like finding Christ's love and what that means for their life, and like understand that kind of rawness. And I think some Christians are going to have a problem with it, and that's fine. But I do think that there's just something about hearing that perspective of someone who's new to the faith, and there's an honesty that the church, I think, can really use right now, where everything we put out is so saccharine and so clean and so perfect, and we don't realize that these people who have lived in a different world than us are now finding Christ's love, and it's coming out in different ways. And I think that's something that we can celebrate.
Yeah, I think, like you said, there's a messiness to all of us when we, surrender our lives to Jesus, that sometimes just doesn't come out. Like most people I know that, they bow their knee to Jesus, that maybe they join their language doesn't just instantly change, or, and for some people this happens, and I think God can, if you, whatever those typical things are. Like I've heard of people that like they got saved and like they never like craved nicotine again, for example. But that also doesn't mean that everybody who gets saved is never going to do the things that we would say are bad, unhealthy, never drink alcohol again, and never smoke again, never cuss again, never this again. And so I think we have to realize that because we've been redeemed and rescued by Jesus, our lives aren't perfect, and we still have issues that we're struggling with, and demons that we're fighting, and that discipleship process looks different. I think there's a phrase, belong, believe, behave, that a lot of times we don't say, and so we want to tell people, hey, you belong into our community before you'll ever believe, and then your behavior changes. But how we often want to see it happen in the church is we want someone to believe in Jesus, then start behaving a certain way, and then they can belong. And I think we have to remember it didn't happen for us probably that way, and so give grace. But
I also think in like the Christian culture and faith, like I grew in my faith as I met people that I could relate to their story, that related to part of my story. And so as Christians, as our family, we need different people who have different stories and different backgrounds so that they can relate to other people who don't know Jesus, and in different ways that I could never relate to someone. And so it's so valuable to have that a part of our family, is just different people's experiences and relationships, and being able to relate to other people who don't know God yet.
And what a bridge builder that he is, and just the influence that he has. And I don't know. I mean, I've been a believer since I was 8 years old, and I still feel messy. And I hope I always feel a little messy, because I think that I realize more and more how much I need Jesus. And I think that like through that lens, like I see people, I see my dependence on Christ, and I think we toe such a line for when you're talking about like our behaviors follow for us to say, okay, well, you've done this and now you need to start acting this way, and to put those expectations on people and their faith journey, realizing that, okay, I've been a Christian for 29 years. Oh, I just dated myself. Oh, wait, it's like 27. But anyways, it's like, there's still like, I'm still in that process. And so I think we're striving for holiness and that relationship with Christ, but the time limit, I mean, you can't do that for people.
Yeah.
All right. Our next headline comes from ESPN.com. We're not going to be reporting any sports, just so you know. But this is
Sorry, Alex.
this is
The Huskers.
no latest score updates or anything like this. But this is it is involving an athlete. Tampa Bay Buccaneers CB Carlton Davis tweeted an anti-Asian slur and then apologizes for it. Now this story was posted on April 4th, and I think in just kind of in lieu of all the other, Stop Asian Hate themed things that have been coming up, it is, it's kind of wild that this stuff just keeps popping up, and but this is another example of people, potentially being ignorant or just not understanding the context, but also, a good example of all of us needing to be more aware of the language that we use and what these things mean. He wasn't, referring directly to anyone Asian or anything like that, but he did use the G word, which is a word that is an offensive term to the Asian culture. And he apologized in later tweets saying that he had used that slur before, but he thought that it just was a word that meant lame or whatever. And that was kind of just the way he grew up and what he understood it as.
Mm-hmm.
I think even a screenshot of maybe Urban Dictionary or something like that how it uses that maybe in his tweet. Mm-hmm. So I had when we looked at this, I had to Google, go try to find a screenshot of what the actual tweet was, because I didn't know. And then I heard the word. Honestly, I had never even heard that word before, used ignorantly or not. And so I didn't. And there are other, I think, racial, especially Asian, motivate or Asian targeted kind of racial terms I have heard. So I thought it was a different word when I was like, oh, he used something. So I was pretty ignorant to it, which also just shows if somebody used that word in my presence, probably before this, now I know. And I'm like, what does that mean? And they're like, it means lame. I'd have probably been like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have picked up it in my vocabulary, but maybe there's terms I've used, loosely as I've heard them, and then I just start using them in my language because I think it's cool. Like I even said that earlier.
Yeah.
That slaps or whatever, maybe that comes what a banger. I said it was a banger.
Yeah.
And so there are times in my life I don't really know the roots of it, and I start using that because I'm like, oh, that's funny, it's cool.
It's like an English sausage. That's what it is.
I always think it's interesting when celebrities get called out, or just more people that are more in mainstream media that would get more attention like this did. Maybe he didn't mean it that way. So we can take that for what it is and opinions and reactions there. But this is an opportunity for someone to be called out strongly and for us to learn. Alex, you maybe never would have known that. And you maybe would have, who knows, situation that you could have accidentally said that or heard it and not known. But it's also maybe, it seems to us like an overreaction, but that is so deeply hurtful to a culture. And people were very hurt by that. And that hurts me. I would never say that. And I think now we know and have an awareness of it where it was an opportunity for learning, but he learned the hard lesson.
Yeah. This has been interesting to me because I've heard that word before and I knew the meaning of it. And so hearing people go, what? I didn't know what that was. To me, that was shocking. I'm like, how do you not know that? But
what rock do you live under, Alex?
Yeah. It is, and it's not. And it's one of those things where it's just where we've been, the instances we've been a part of. Even, I think I probably heard that word the first time in a movie, and so it's just your exposure to different things and why you know what you know, whatever. But I think the bigger thing here is how we react. It's how he reacted to it, whether you want to say his apology was sincere or not, that doesn't really matter. He apologized. But then also, like you said, Jess, how are we reacting to this? Is this something where we're willing to, now that we have been presented with new information, we are accountable. So do we make a change? Do we not make a change? Do we say something the next time we hear someone use that word? Or maybe we didn't know what it meant. Yeah. Now we go, hey, that's not okay. Do we speak up? I don't know. Those are the types of things that we now have to address in our own lives.
And I think there's a window right now of that, from things that have happened recently in culture with just Asian culture and Asian hate and killings and things like that maybe even a year ago, that tweet wouldn't have made any kind of, news, but because there's an awareness, which I think is good, it uses this as another opportunity to hopefully grow inside of this. And so I think that's a positive. And then we get into all the cancel culture and all those kind of conversations we've already had over, do you just cancel this guy because he used that word, and is his apology real or not? And then you can go on tons of bunny trails, but we don't have time for that.
I think if people are showing humility in these situations and they're also willing to express their ignorance, and I think that's the right reaction to have, right? It's not just like, well, it doesn't matter, words don't matter, whatever. You guys are overreacting. That's the response that you can't be okay with. All right, that does it for headlines. Up next, we are going to be tackling the topic of Asian hate that has been very prominent in the media. An example here, Alex and Rachel, you got to sit down with our guest as you discuss this topic.
So here we are today. We're going to have a conversation like we typically do on this podcast. We've got two special guests that are coming to talk to us today. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves in a second, but recently, 2020, 2021 has been quite a couple years, and some of the things that we've seen, I think, are things that have broken the heart of God, but also things that have been brought to light so we can have these kind of conversations. And so one of the recent things that really, I think, over 2020 has kind of had some more light shut on it is just the reality. And there's been a hashtag trending around the last few weeks, hashtag Stop Asian Hate. And I think a few of the key things that have led to that were, obviously, in Florida, there was just a devastating attack on people, mostly Asian, that were killed by a young man, and so that led to a lot of pain and heartache and some of this conversation. I know a professional basketball player named Jeremy Lin has talked about this in wake of coronavirus and some of the things that have happened, and even in our country's response to calling it a China virus or doing things that have really pointed us against other people, specifically, I think those who are Asian. And so we want to have that conversation with both of you today and just get your perspective. We're not having you be like the end all be all, answer everything kind of things, but we just want to learn from you, and hopefully our listeners can learn, and we build some empathy today and grow in unity and appreciation for God, who creates diversity and celebrates diversity. And so that's a little bit of our intro. And now to get to know both of you, I'll go with Eugene first. Eugene, you just want to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are. What are you up to in life? Maybe even what your nationality or your heritage background is, and maybe why you're even interested in this conversation.
Yeah,
that's a lot. Sure. So hopefully you remember it all.
Yeah. My name is Eugene. I currently go to UNO right now. I'm a senior, and I'm doing a double major, so I'm in biomedical sciences and neuroscience. And for me, both my dad and my mom, they're from mainland China, so I'm kind of the first generation in the West, essentially. So that's kind of, just a little bit about my background.
Gotcha. So both your parents immigrated from the U.S. Or are they living here?
Yes. Okay. So they started off immigrating first,
or not from
Canada
to the U.S.
Yeah. They went from Canada first, and then they came to America. So so I'm kind of the first generation out, I guess, of mainland China.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and a cool fact that you shared earlier is that you were born in Canada.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. Exactly.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Fun. Tim, how about you?
Yeah, so my name is Thien, and thank you for having me here. Yeah. I was born in Vietnam. I'm actually a quarter Puerto Rican too, so it's like a mix in there. But we moved here when I was 9 to Des Moines, Iowa, and then now I live here with my husband, Jeremy. We both go to CLI Benson, but I work at Mutual of Omaha as a business analyst.
Cool, awesome. So what brought you to Omaha?
My husband.
Okay, your husband brought you here.
Mainly because his family, and he's here. So when he proposed, I just it's like, Omaha it is.
Yeah.
Omaha it is. There you go. And Eugene, are you from like, does your family live in Omaha, or how'd you land in Omaha?
Yeah, so one of the big reasons why we moved to Nebraska in the first place. So first in Lincoln was because, my dad actually got a job in Lincoln, University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and then another one at UNO. So I still consider myself, or I consider Omaha my home. So
Gotcha.
in a really big way.
Cool. So both of you having family members that came from other countries, what was the initial draw to either Canada, the US? Like, what brought your family, mom and dad's, to the US?
I can go first. For my family, for my mom, it was mostly my mom's decision of wanting to find her dad, because she's half Puerto Rican and half Vietnamese.
Okay.
And so for her, it was more of finding that root that she never knew of. She didn't knew that actually her stepdad was her stepdad until she was like 18.
Oh, wow.
So for a big part of her life, she didn't knew that there was another person in her life that could impact
goodness,
her.
yeah.
She always knew that she was kind of looking different because of her mix, but she thought it was just discrimination actually within her own family and people in her village in Vietnam. But she didn't really think about it until one day her stepdad told her that he's not her dad, and she's like, what?
Wow.
And so that's when she wanted to move to America, is to find that part of her that she didn't know was a part of her. And so she applied to come to America when I was like 1, but we got rejected. And so we waited another 9 years when I was 9. And then it was like a whole year of applying until we finally got approved. And then we just flew right to America in LAX, Los Angeles.
Wow.
It's like a really bizarre story because it took us so long to come to America, 9 years. But I know of other people's story of how they had to go through the boat. For a lot of Vietnamese people, they have to they did through the boat coming to America, and that's crazy. And then there's some people that have to fly through Philippines or other refugees area, and then they can come to America. But for us, it took us 9 years to wait in Vietnam, but then it's instantly, we just came to the U.S. as soon as we got accepted.
Wow.
But that wasn't the point that we stopped having a hardship, because as soon as we landed, the people that's supposed to sponsor us in Illinois back out. So we stay a day in LAX not knowing where we will go. Are they going to send us back to Vietnam now that we approve, but then they back out? Or where we go? And so that's how we landed in Iowa, because the Department of Human Services there accepted us.
Wow.
So it's a weird journey to come to America, but that's how we came to it. But yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
that is wild.
That's gotta be scary, flying to a brand new country and then being
Yes.
I don't know where I'm gonna live now. That's so overwhelming.
Definitely. Yeah. My mom told me we only had 5 suitcases and only a $370 because we sold everything. And so, that money, you don't really think about, it could start a whole generation, but from five suitcases and $300, my family is now where we are. And so it's
so cool.
I don't know, whenever I reflect back and how I came to America, I was like, $300, you can go far.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Wow. So quickly, was English a part of your language? Were you learning English when you were in Vietnam? Did you know English when you came?
Nope. I didn't even know where America was.
Wow.
So in the news in Vietnam, we don't really see a lot of foreign news at my time. And so I thought we were going to go to the Middle East. I thought, because there was war going on. And so that's where I was projecting the foreign land. And so I was like, it's kind of scary. I don't know where I'm going. And I've never flew a plane before. And Vietnam is very hard for you to have a chance to fly because it's very expensive, and you can't really leave the country unless you have really, really a lot of documentation to show that you can leave, because they're afraid that you just escape. And so I didn't know where America was, and I didn't know
Wow.
anything about English. And so we came to America, and we had to start everything from over. Like, we didn't have a car, so we walk everywhere, and we use the bus. And the bus system in the Midwest is not the best.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it wasn't the best. And then the weather, we came around July, and it was good. But then by the time it was August and September, that was like, okay, the leaf is changing. Why is it getting colder?
Yeah.
And that was a big for us, and
Shock,
especially
yeah.
the food too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
That's crazy. How about you, Eugene? Like, how did your family end up or want to come here?
Yeah, not as a crazy story as that one, but for my parents, it was more about opportunity. So my dad, he was kind of he's in the academic field, so he was doing a lot of research, and he had the opportunity to go to Laval University in Quebec for his PhD. So yeah, he took that opportunity, and from there, I kind of just step by step. As after he got his PhD, he got a job at UNL, and then from there he was able to transfer to UNO for kind of a same position in bioinformatics, but it was a professorship job. So it was mainly the idea of looking for something better, looking for opportunities, looking for kind of a better academic status than what he had in mainland China. So yeah, not as crazy, but a little bit similar in the sense of kind of looking at the broader scope of not just seeing that there's something better than what they had back in mainland China.
Wow.
That is.
Okay, so let's kind of start our conversation off then with we kind of want to know what you guys think are some typical stereotypes that you guys get or that you've seen just like growing up and in America. Do you guys have any of those stereotypes?
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the big one that pops up in my mind is kind of being smart, like it's kind of expected almost as if, okay, because of how you look, your skin tone or whatnot, your background, your upbringing, that you are expected to be academically profound, and I think that's, at least in my case, that's one of the biggest ones that I've kind of seen.
Yeah, I have to agree with that too, just because like that's just that stereotype where all Asian is smart. I worked my butt off in college.
Yeah.
Like my first year, I failed in college. I had to go back to a community college because I just didn't know anything. And then my family, my parents, like they didn't know anything about like the college system. Like you have to apply a FAFSA, you have to apply a scholarship, you have to apply for grant, and then living in dorm. They know nothing about that. And I didn't have any support group that showed me that either. And so like my first year into college was like chaos. It was devastating. I even like went to counseling because it was just so stressful. Not only like I'm in a new city, I'm learning all this thing new. I'm away from home, but it's just like unknown territory. Because my parent never been to it either, and so it was just very different for me. That I had this expectation that I didn't know that I was supposed to fulfill. And then not only that, but like within my family, my parent was like expecting me to be like doctor, expecting me to like take all this chemistry class or take all this like AP or courses, and I'm just like, I'm not that smart. Like I work hard, but it's not what I'm passionate about. And so you have like these expectation that people expect of you that you don't know that you're supposed to fulfill. And so you feel like, am I letting people down? Am I letting myself down? Am I letting my own people down? It's just kind of like that thing where you held on a higher level that you didn't know that you were when you don't make that. And so like for me, I major in international study and writing certificate. And so it was like something that not a lot of Asians go into. And so most of my class, I was the only minority.
Oh, wow.
And so it's just kind of weird. Like when I see in the business building or when I see in the science building. There's tons of Asian community there. But then where I'm at, like the writing center, nobody's there. That is like the same color as me, you know. And so I feel like as I go through my college, I felt like I was like that 1% almost. So yeah, that's how I feel. But then going that also that stereotype where we all look alike, or that we eat the same food. Nope, we do not. Or if we Asian, we know all the other language.
Oh yeah,
That's why I get a lot.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, Vietnamese is so different from Chinese, Japanese, Taiwanese, Hong Kong Mandarin. You know, there's so many language. Even within one country, they don't even know the other country. I mean, within their own country, they don't even know all their language.
Yep. Wow.
And so I was just like, nope, I only know Vietnamese. I don't know what they're speaking. I can't translate it for you. We don't eat that type of food. We eat like this. And so it's almost like I have to constantly explaining what I am. And so I get that question a lot, like, what are you? Who are you? Like, where are you from? Or I usually say, well, I'm from Iowa, but then they're like, well, where are you born? I get those questions a lot. And I sometimes find myself asking the same question to other people too, that I see different, because I think we want that quick answer, so then we can put them in a box or a category, and then we can tag them with whatever label we already put in that box.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I know for sure I'm guilty of growing up in the U.S., in the Midwest even, like all Hispanic culture, you're just like, oh, it's all the same. And then you start to travel and you're like, it's vastly different. Or all Asian culture equals the same thing, or African culture. And the more hopefully I grow as an individual and as an adult and my awareness of the world, you start to shatter those. But I think when you're, especially in a Midwest area that is predominantly white, and you see anything different than that, you just kind of can easily and ignorantly put it all in that same box and recreate that stereotype. And so it sounds different. You have a different path because you are in that sciences building and things like that. So how has that affected you, or that stereotype of being smart?
No, I think it's very similar, because I've been through that, where it's like, it's almost as if there's an expectation. If you're not a doctor, a lawyer, in finance, like you're somehow a failure. And I think even culturally speaking, like kind of even talking to my parents, it was almost like, I wouldn't say forced, but it was like advised with a big emphasis of, hey, medicine's kind of cool, you know, maybe you should go in this direction, or if you don't want to do that, maybe engineering. And I think I'm blessed in the sense of, through my own self-searching, I actually enjoy biology. Like I enjoy biomedical sciences. So I'm kind of lucky in the sense. And I know there's some friends of mine who are kind of in that biology sphere, where they're like, I'm only here because of my parents, or like they're kind of almost on the track of med school. It's like, yeah, it's 100% parent pressure. And kind of on that topic, it's, me and my parents actually had a conversation about it, because it's kind of what you said. I like what you said, where it's like, it's amazing how far such a small amount of money can take you. And and I kind of put myself in my parents' footsteps, where it's very similar in the sense they didn't come first off to Quebec with a lot of money. They had almost, I think, 1,000 Canadian dollars back then. So it was, and that was like for rent and for like the first month of food. That's it. And then from there, it was like, my dad had a stipend from his scholarship, but that was to cover just my mom's living, the housing, and just that's it, right? So for them to come from that environment where they kind of had nothing, I can see where they really want to push their child to, hey, like, we really want you to succeed, right? We went through all of this. We want you, it was all for you to make sure that you had a good future, right? And I totally respect that. And then, as I think one of the most amazing things as seeing my parents grow, even through their Christian walk, is them accepting mine and my little brother's kind of desire to not necessarily do what we want for the sake of them, for the sake of kind of promoting a cultural thing. Because there's another kind of aspect of almost competitiveness in Asian culture, where like my parents will talk with other Asian parents, and one of the things they discuss about is their children. Like, to them, their children are like their token. It's like, man, where's your child going to college? What's your child doing now? And it's as if the emphasis is for me to succeed, not for my sake almost, but so they can show me off in a way. It's like, oh man, I want my kid to do this because that way when I talk with the other Asian parents or whatnot, I can be able to show them off. That's why when I was in Toronto, my parents were really proud of me. But when I came to UNO, it was like, not necessarily they're like sad and depressed, but it was this kind of idea of like, oh, what happened? What was going on there? But as they kind of slowly grew in the understanding and through their Christian maturity, they kind of found this, that their identity isn't rooted in me, right? Isn't rooted in their children. And that's something super beautiful that I've seen through their lives. But I'm not sure if it's the same thing where it's like this competitiveness between Asian parents where it's like, oh my goodness, my child got Harvard. And then like everyone talks, right? Everyone talks about it. So that's another big aspect of why there's a big pressure for Asian parents to push their children. It's kind of, I guess it's an inside circle kind of thing that a lot of people who I guess aren't in the Asian culture kind of know about. So that's one aspect where, when you see an individual who's Asian and they're kind of really academically rigorous, there's a little bit more under the hood than just them kind of doing it for themselves or possibly doing it for their parents.
Yeah. Well, I feel like there's a lot of undercurrent that we don't know about within the Asian community. That's very hard to explain of how like we view the shame and honor kind of community, or also like my parent always talk about like we came here for you, like they always tell me that they always tell me that we came here to the US for you children. So then that's put like that like pressure on us too, but then at the same time, like we come into America, we have this dual reality. Like, do we follow our heritage, where we come from, or do we live in the society and the culture that we're living in now, which is American culture? And so it's always constantly pulling and pushing us. Who are we associating? Who are we valuing? Like, what culture should we value? I feel like I always have a identity crisis, whether I'm at home, work, or when I'm at school. And then going that with discriminations and stuff like that, my family, I have such a big voice on my parents telling me what to do, and then I have what society and culture is telling me what to do, but then what do I want to do? And so my biggest thing was that when I found Christ, when I found God, because Jesus tell me what he want me to do. And so I started listening to that voice instead of all the other voices telling me, even though I love my family and even though I feel connected to the community I'm in, God was the voice that I wanted to hear, even though sometimes his voice was the quietest, but he was the one that kind of anchored me through also my of self-discovering, like who am I? Why am I here?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's so good. That's cross-cultural. When any of us discover that purpose,
definitely,
it doesn't matter where we come from. So I guess speaking into even realizing, hey, some of these stereotypes are driven by the culture, right? I mean, being smart and things like that. How have you seen those stereotypes like just kind of be okay? And or how do you feel like, can I even speak against that? Like, I remember growing up, I had a friend who was Asian, and oftentimes he would like make food jokes, like he would say, oh yeah, you never know what kind of meat is going to be in if you eat dinner. And like, I think that's one horrible thing that people have said about, a Chinese restaurant or whatever inside of our culture. But he would often like almost self-deprecate to give into the humor of just terrible stereotyping in here. And so then I grew like, oh, that must be okay for, like, he jokes about it, so it's okay. So what are like maybe those microaggressions that happen inside of, our culture that maybe you've even given into or said, I've got to give into that peer pressure or that stereotype just because that's part of being an American, part of being in the American culture and being accepted there, if that makes sense?
I feel like for me, those microaggressions, when it happened, it's more of me of wanting to conform, wanting to not rise up, because I feel like it's so unnatural for me to speak up. It's so unnatural for me to look at people in the eyes and talk to them and then tell them how I truly feel. So for me, I tend to be on the submissive side when those things can happen. I don't bring it up. I don't make fun of my own culture or my, within the Asian community. But when it does happen, I tend to like laugh it off, or I agree, because I feel like if I do that, it will be easier for me. And so being the one that always like the one person in the room that's Asian, like even within my workplace, there's like 20 of us and I'm the only Asian American. So when they talk about Asian American culture or making fun of, I feel like it's easier for me to just agree and go along with it than to speak up. But as what we see, what's going on today is that staying silent is not enough. Being submissive is not good enough. It's actually making the issue worse. Is actually letting the people who think that just because they're allowed that their opinion is right. That's not right.
Yeah.
And so that's why I learned from what's going on around here. It's just I feel like even with like the George Floyd incident where I saw the video clip of that Asian American policeman just stood by. I cried when I saw that clip because I feel like I could have been him. I could have been a bystander who stood there seeing what happened and don't say anything, because that's what I have been doing with my personal life is that I just let things happen around me as if it's not affecting me, but obviously it's affecting me because I felt like a deep sense of like hurt and almost hate, because I felt like why are they hating my people? Like just because I'm different doesn't mean I'm not any less than you. And so I just feel like what's going on, just because we ignore it doesn't mean that it's not happening.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it definitely depends on the context too, right? Kind of this idea of I definitely have friends where, right, like this idea, like I'm kind of with you, where it's like if they start joking about my culture, right, I'll kind of just go along with it.
Yeah.
But underlying that, I understand that they know me as a person, right? They don't just look at me as the Asian guy, right? They know me as Eugene. They know me love science, love soccer, love just having fun with people, right? They know me holistically, not just as an Asian person. But kind of what you're saying, there are those people who will kind of use like a broad brush and just like kind of paint all Asians as one and use that as kind of an excuse of saying, yeah, Asians, they joke about it themselves, right? Why can't I joke about it too? I think it really is the context about who's saying it and kind of the tone of the joke or the tone of the conversation. Because honestly, I think growing up in this culture, like I've kind of grown a thick skin where even if someone comes at me with kind of an aggressive tone, whether they kind of willingly or unwillingly know about it, I'll kind of shrug it off. I mean, like after a day, I'll be like, oh, okay, it's kind of weird, but I can deal with it. But for me, I think it's kind of what you're saying, the awareness, where it's like being understanding. It's like, oh man, this joke might come off a little bit different, or maybe they don't know me as well as I think they do. Maybe they think of me, or they think of my joke as just looking at them through the lens of just an Asian person, just through the lens of ethnicity. So I think, yeah, it really does come back to context, because I don't want to get to a point where nobody can like necessarily joke about that stuff, because there is a point where, for me, my friends, because one of the things I talk about is grades, like academic, because it's such a big part of it, and we talk about grades and like failing classes or whatnot, even though they know and they make fun of me whenever I think I do bad on a test, right? Or what I think is bad on a test. Like they'll make fun of me for it, because they understand that I take it sometimes way too seriously, where I almost go from one end to the other extreme. So it just goes back to the idea of making sure that if you're even thinking about doing that, making sure who you're talking to, and making sure that they kind of understand you in the right perspective, in the right lens. Because one of the big reasons why I love my friends is because they're not uptight when they're around me. Like this is something that makes us friends, that we can be like this together. And from those bonds, it just in my opinion, at least, it gets stronger. So yeah, it all goes back to context.
I feel like you made such a good point too about like American humor. Like that is one thing that like when I was growing in my faith in college, I realized like sarcasm is American humor, or like bringing other people down or calling people out on their weaknesses. That's American humor for some reason. And we just think that's the funniest thing ever. But I feel like that has fed into so much stuff in such a horrible, negative way. And that's something I had to grow in college of like, okay, people are laughing, but people are also getting hurt by this. So, you know, what do I want? Do I want to be laughed at, or do I want, you know, and do I want to hurt people? And so I think you bring up a really good point of just like, even like American humor kind of is feeding into these things that is a negative, you know, thing. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. Do you, either of you have like any stories of just straight up blatant, like maybe ignorantly, but just blatant racism that's like happened to you maybe as you're growing up, or maybe at, you know, you were 11, 12, you had no clue, you know, what a word meant, or that somebody was treating you differently because of this. But now as you look back on an adult and you're like, as I reflect, man, that coach or that teacher or that whatever, fill in the blank, they were pretty racist or prejudiced. And because I do think there's a difference in prejudice and racism, and the motivation behind both of those things. So maybe stories of prejudice that you did notice, and I love, Thien, just your boldness of saying, man, I'm growing in this. I've been somebody who has been passive, and that's just a part of who I am, but the work of the Lord in me is giving me boldness. Even you coming on and both of you having this conversation, we tried to have this conversation with a few different people, and a lot of people are like, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I can have that. So you being here is big, but do you have any like just stories that you can share that help us like feel a little bit of what you've experienced? And you don't have to make something up. If you haven't, then I'm not in saying make up something.
A lot of when I like the first few years that I came to America was very rough for me and my sibling, just because we didn't speak English. It was very hard for us, and my parent didn't speak English. So, and then we also dressed differently. You know, we didn't have a lot of money, so a lot of our clothes were like hand me down from friends, or we buy a Goodwill, or you know, stuff like that. And so the first few years in America was very rough for me and my sister because we would get picked on, even though we were in a school that was very diverse. We were getting picked on by all type of people, like from kids that are white, from kids that are black, from kids that are Hispanic, because we're different and we don't speak English. And so I feel like in almost every community, when we see that discrimination, like why are they being discriminated? And it's almost like we were the scapegoat, you know. And so because we were weak compared to, even though we look all different, but because we have something is of a disadvantage of not being able to speak in English or understand the American culture, we were picked on the most. Like I remember waiting at the bus stop or on the bus. It was one of the few times that I don't want to remember back in my childhood, because it was very horrible, because I feel like I was constantly being picked on, and so that's the only time I feel like over time, as I live in America, I learned to blend in. I learned to drop that, well, not drop, but slowly speak in a way where my accent won't show, or my American show more than my Vietnamese. You know, so I try to blend in so much, because those first few years was just too hard for me. And so that's where also like my passive and my submission kind of come in, because I felt like if I stand out, then they gonna pick on me. If I stood up, they gonna put me down. And so I learned to be more like just blend in as well. Even though I'm usually the different, I blend in. Like even my mind, sometimes I try to live that white narrative of, or to live, you know, like with my family. Like we first moved to like all immigrant neighborhood, because that's where they placed us, and then we moved to like an Asian and a black community, and then we're like, you know, this is not good. And then eventually my parent moved to like a white neighborhood, and now my mom lived in the middle of nowhere, you know. So it's just kind of progress of where you also want to live, because you don't want that confrontation. But the thing is, like, if you don't have a confrontation, how do you know it existed? How do you move forward? And so that's how I feel like with where I'm at, is that there are times where I try to hide, and time where I was like, well, I don't want to see discriminations. I don't want to see what's going on. But as I realized, well, just ignoring is not going to solve anything. But going with your question, because I'm leading up.
That's good.
The most recent one, I felt like that I have been most discriminated. Actually, in Vietnam, last year, we at like the start of COVID, my husband and I went back to Vietnam like around March. And that was right at the start of COVID. And Vietnam didn't have a lot of cases, but the cases that it had, majority was from foreigner. And so while we were there, we walked in the park one night, and they were very verbally expressive and mean, and calling out because my husband is white. And so they were talking about him, and they calling him, I don't think he looked Russian, but they were like calling him name about Russian people and stuff like that. And then I'm mixed, so they don't even know that I'm Vietnamese and that I can understand them. And so just like seeing my own people, the people that I call home, like that's the village that I grew up in, and just being there and being discriminated and being called racist, or like we were walking, they would run on the other side of the street and then start like cussing at us or start yelling at us because of my husband's color and because of we look differences. So that's like, it's just a weird concept for me, because like I would think that I would face discrimination in the U.S., but even in my own country, I was being discriminated. So I feel like what COVID is bringing out is that underlining that anyone could be a racist, anyone could have a stereotype, anyone could discriminate because of somebody that's different from them. And so that's what I can say on my part, is that I feel like sometimes within my own community, I feel sometimes think the most discriminated, just because I don't look Vietnamese, but I speak the language. So like I would go to nail salon and they would just talk about me, things that they wouldn't say if they knew I can understand them. And so that's the weird thing, is that being discriminated by your own people, by people who you feel belonging to, and then community that you feel belonging to. That's how I can.
I have just a quick question before we get to Eugene, because I do want to hear. So have you ever, and this is maybe just my humor and maybe what Rachel was talking about earlier, but have you ever like been in a situation like that and then kind of let them know you hurt, like after they talked about you for like 20 minutes, then kind of spoke, and then they're like, oh no.
That part of me never show up.
Okay. I was just curious, because it was me.
I have been in so many situations like that, and I would tell my friends, they're like, why don't you just speak up, Thien? Or like even my husband when he's with me, and it's like, Thien, just say something in Vietnamese, and then they just shut up. And I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like I wouldn't know what they think about me if I don't let them continue. Yeah. But then a part of me feel like, well, I need to tell them so that they don't do that to the next person, and the next person gonna get their feeling hurt.
Yeah.
Because my feeling would definitely hurt when I, can hear those kind of things. Because,
Yeah, I think for me, a past one is kind of more of the language barrier, where when I used to play kind of travel soccer back when I was younger, it just seeing how other parents would hang out with all the other parents except for my dad, who would usually come with me. And then, just seeing him kind of just stand by himself, like in the stands, where, it's not like he didn't want to. He tried to interact with some of the other parents, right? But like you said, like him not fully understanding the language and kind of understanding some of the types of humor that they had going on, it just kind of, a lot of stuff went over his head. And so it was just hard for him to interact with American culture. And seeing him in that environment compared to seeing him with Chinese people, like some of the people that he knows, like super, like one of the funniest people. And truthfully, I don't understand Chinese humor, but from the way that people laugh, he's like the star of the show. So like, it's just seeing him in those two different interactions. It was really fascinating. And I don't think they were blatantly doing it. I think it's just, they were, the other parents are just more comfortable being with talking and interacting with the other type of parents instead of talking to my dad. And yeah, that was just something that kind of just stuck in my head. And I guess the more recent one is kind of what you're saying, like during COVID time, where one of the things I like to do, kind of like to de-stress, is I love to run. So yeah, I just remember I was out running, and a lot of times, they kind of just like take a couple steps back, and then they put their put their shirt over their face and stuff. And I don't know if it's, maybe they do it to everybody, but it might have been just a subconscious thing where it's like doing it. But yeah, that's just something I kind of noticed. But other than that, it's been, I guess, one of the big ones that it's kind of using the C word, I guess you could say, when in high school, where I didn't know it was derogatory until somebody told me, and I was like, oh, they're making fun of me for that. And that was kind of, I never knew there was a derogatory term for Chinese people, but after they said it, it was like, oh wow, okay, got it now.
I feel like it's the same for the word immigrant. Like when we first came to America, we're like, oh, we're immigrant. But then as I go through like school, the word immigrant it has like a bad like notations. It like has bad meaning to, like, you could get deported anytime, or you don't belong here, or you're an alien, you know, like you don't have a right here, or stuff like that. And so I felt like it's weird because this country is made up of immigrants.
Yeah.
That's our that's our building block. Yet that word is used so negatively that I was like, I don't want to be called immigrant. I don't want to be called that. You know, and so I feel like that's also another word that I was like, I don't want to be called that, because I realized it didn't really happen a positive feeling to it.
Yeah, it's that ironic. Go back to your own country. It's.
Yeah.
I mean, no one is very far removed. Like, that's everybody in the U.S. We're not a very old country, and all of our roots are through immigrant roots. And so it is this ironic, ignorant kind of, we own this place mentality that we got a lot. We got ego is not something hard to find out of our American culture. That's for sure. So.
Okay, Thien, you mentioned your husband is white, right? So another question we kind of have is about relationships that you guys have with friends or also with your husband. Just what kind of conversations have come out of that, because you guys are, you know, two completely different cultures and backgrounds and all that kind of stuff. So what are some conversations you've had to have between you guys?
I have to say, every day is a struggle. It's like there's not like a struggle, but it's just like trying to understand two people, you know, even within, you know, just a man and a woman, just trying to understand each other's sex is already the hard. But then you have that culture barrier in there too. That's where it's hard. And also, like, my family, most of them are not believers, whereas his family is believer. So then it's also that, like, throw in with like Christian and, you know, religion is also another like factor in where it's so hard sometimes to understand how, like, I do things like with my family. Like, I'm the oldest, so I hold a lot of responsibility to my family. At one point, I actually financially support my family 100%.
Wow.
And then my husband, whereas on the other side, he just support himself. You know, like he doesn't have that narrative where he has to support, even though he's the only son, whereas I'm the oldest and the first child. Like, I always have the expectation, like, you have to do this, then you have to do that. And so sometimes explaining to my husband, like, well, I'm taking care of my sibling because of this and this and this. So it's like this whole list I have to explain to him sometimes when I just want to do it. You know, because now as a husband and wife, our financial is together. So when I spend something, I do want to let him know why I'm spending it. But sometimes it's hard to explain to him why I'm doing it, because there's like this deep, like, belief in me that I want to support my family, even though they are, you know, even though my husband and I are one yolk. And so it's kind of like that thing. And then also, like, with food, sometimes I just crave for rice, you know, and he's living, you know, he's a Midwest boy, and he's just, rice is not the staple he's thinking of, you know. And so when we were in Vietnam and we were quarantined for 14 days, he only had Vietnamese food, and that was torture. And so those kind of aspects, it's funny because I feel like every day we are learning something new. Like it could be like the same thing, but it's just a different layer of depth. It's like a newer depth of the topic, like food. Or sometimes I watch my Asian drama, and he's like, "Well, who's this person?" I'm like, he's, because sometimes we get served like all Asian look alike. I'm like, no, we did not. And I would have to tell him like, okay, this is who, and this is the girl, and so stuff like that. I have to like help my husband understand. It's weird because I know that he's not being racist, and I know that he's not trying to stereotype, but it's just like things that he wouldn't know if he wasn't gonna, if he didn't marry me.
Yeah.
If he married like another, person who is similar to him.
Yeah.
So I always give him praise because he took a step to go into the unknown world. Yeah, and then our family is so different because his family are very mellow, chill. My family is like, you come and it's crazy, like it's just like a typhoon. So it's like whenever we come, because we have to travel to Des Moines and come back. Every weekend is like when we do go there, it's like exhausted. Because my family is like all in the face, and so they will ask him questions and stuff like that. But yeah, so every day it's a challenge, but it's also a good thing because we are exploring, and I learn a lot about him too, from his perspective. He, it's not just one way, but it's the other. It's just learning his family and his culture. It's so crazy because I'm living in America and I think I know what American culture is, but by marrying him, I learned a different American culture from his perspective.
Yeah,
that's good. So as we think of like wrapping up, and I think you guys have shared a lot of this, but as you think of how do we start to make change? I think we're in a time right now, a window, and I think in a social media, fast-paced, on to the next kind of society that we live in, we have to take advantage of windows for change. And so, how do you see change beginning to happen? You've even said a little bit, Thien, you're just speaking up. Maybe one step at a time. When you feel like I should be submissive, or everything inside of you tells you that's what you have to do. How do you start to, make headway? What are the vehicles to help make change, bring awareness, as people to start to continue to care? And I think it's small things like, let's just not call this the China virus, like all of those things. But what are other ways that either of you see? Let's take advantage of this. Let's create awareness, and let's start to see some change in this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think exposure, like exposing yourself to different cultures, right? Like the idea of, even if you look at Asia as a whole, right? There's so many different kind of subcultures. Not even subcultures, just cultures itself, right?
Yeah.
China, you have Japan, Korea, North Korea, and South Korea, the Philippines, Vietnam. Like it's a plethora of different cultures just in that area, and kind of being exposed to that and kind of understanding that, oh man, it's way more complex than just one people group. And I think it's the same with like even for me when I first got exposed to America, whereas like I kind of saw Nebraska as, okay, this is what all America must be. It's like, no, there's East Coast, West Coast, different types of slang. Texas is its own thing, right? So it's like, it's looking at people as an individual. I think that's one of the big thing, and exposing yourself to different cultures, and just being curious, not in like kind of an intrusive way where, oh, I got to check this box off. But it's like, hey, man, this is just something I'm interested in. And it's a way to kind of not just better your understanding culturally, but just bettering yourself and being able to understand people for their own culture and celebrating that at the same time, kind of understanding their perspective. So definitely exposure for me. That's probably one of the big things that's kind of would be much appreciated for everybody.
That's cool.
I love that so much too, because I feel like this year has brought up a lot of that, just uncomfortableness for people, and I feel like it's hard, and people don't want to be uncomfortable. They just want to sit back and have their easy life and not have to be in weird situations. And this year I've gotten the opportunity to meet a friend from India, and she like cooked us a meal from her culture and shared about her life, and I got to take her to the airport and like hear about her family, and like it was different and it was hard, and we had to come over those barriers, but like it was so cool that I got to learn about her and how God made her and her culture, and her food was amazing, and just I feel like it grew my heart for like God's creation, because God created us all so differently, and hearing your stories and your lives, like God has created all of us so differently and our stories so differently, but he's in each of our stories. And so I don't know, it's uncomfortable and it's hard, but it's so cool and rewarding in the end, and you just get to see God so much better when you do that. So I love that you brought that up, Eugene. I think that's cool.
I have to agree, because it's when we share our stories, that's when we slowly understanding each other, and by doing that, like getting exposure. You know, like before I didn't really know, even within my own culture, I didn't really know much, but then I started learning about it. And then I start traveling, and in Asia and then in Europe, and so I realized, wow, there's a broader world out there than just the world I'm thinking in my head. And so I feel like a good vehicle to move forward is just, we are all in this together. You know, racism is personal, but it's not isolated to an individual case. I feel like all of us experience racism one way or another. And so we have to work together as collectively, and you know, like hearing each other, that's when we start to unravel and understanding what the different layer of racism is. Like just like Jesus, you know, he when he was talking about that Samaritan woman at the well, you know, he kept talking about her, but it wasn't until that Jesus revealed that he know her story that she actually realized that he was the Messiah, because you don't understand somebody unless you know their story, and that's when you connect with them. Is taking that time to talk to somebody, taking that time to eat somebody's food. It's even as simple as taking the time to correctly pronounce somebody else's name. Like my name is Thien, and it's so hard sometimes for people to say, but I love it when people ask how do they pronounce it, because that means I know they care to even pronounce my name. You know, and so that's just like just those simple things. You don't have to go and donate. You don't have to go and do a rally. You don't have to raise millions of dollars. You can do it with just at home by just understanding yourself. And that's what happened to me, was that over the summer I just slowly taking time and just reflecting on myself and reflecting what God has done in myself, and what does God say about racism, and what does God say about discrimination. And because it's all over the Bible, you know, it's all about Jew, the Gentile. It's like it's all over, and so it's not just isolating to our time. I feel like it's everywhere. It's just that now it's the time for us to do something about it.
Yeah, and I think that's, like you pointed out, Jesus and the Samaritan woman, or you know, just the parable of the Good Samaritan, and understanding that God's definition of neighbor is it's not the person next door, but it's anybody. It's anybody that you're in contact with, and it's a worldwide definition. And the gospel, I think that the advantage I think that Christians that actually subscribe to it and let the Holy Spirit do work in our lives have, is that we begin to see everybody made in the image of God, and we see a Christ who came to break down a lot of those barriers. And even in his own culture, Jewish culture, there was expectations of what you did, and he's like, no. Let's break down these walls. Let's not draw circles or lines where people are in and out. But he expanded people's views of race, and invites us to love our neighbor as ourself, and that's difficult to do. And so I think in a gospel narrative and understanding, you know, I think there's people that make comments like, you know, that race is like there's only one race, it's the human race, or you cut us, we all bleed the same. And I get the notion that somebody is saying that's unifying, but it's also, no, God created in his creative nature all of these different nationalities, all these different cultures, and he did it on purpose. Like that's part of how great God is, that he has created all of this, and all of this celebrates and points and worships and gives him glory, not just like creating robots that are one culture equals more of being made in the image of God. And that's not the gospel. It's not what Jesus preaches. And so I think that's one of those things. And I've been slowly learning that we all have prejudice. I mean, you said it, you know, racism is, we all are affected by it and prejudice, but I think proximity is one of the things that starts to wear away our prejudice. And you're not going to just by reading it or seeing it or hearing it or tweeting stupid things, it's in proximity to knowing people's stories, hearing their real names, hearing the real experiences that begin to break down and erode the prejudices we have in our lives. And I think as Christians, that's our call, is to know people as individuals. And so, man, do you guys have anything else you want to add to the conversation? This has been so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, I liked how you kind of said it almost seems like a spectrum where there's some people kind of have this counteraction where they'll go to the other extreme from racism, where it's like, man, everybody's the same. But we're not. That's such a simplistic way of putting it, where I think you're almost brushing off the issue, where there's more to people. You're just saying, okay, I just see, you're still in a way kind of almost a racist tone where I still see you as a color, but I'm just colorblind, right?
Yeah.
I think it's more of looking at people as individuals, as images of God, where, we're all unique, and even cultures, each culture truthfully has its goods and its bads, right? And kind of taking it as a whole and not just saying, okay, I'm taking only the bad part of your culture and painting that as you, or taking the only good of your culture and painting that as you. But it's, looking at the individuals themselves. Because I think one of the things that I've kind of noticed is there's even a generational gap between the first gen Asian Americans and second gen, where like when I was in Toronto and I was interacting a lot more with kind of this in between, because as time progresses, right, there's kind of an identity crisis where a lot of the second gen Chinese Americans are like, I don't know what I am. Where I had a friend, she didn't even know how to speak Chinese, but she looked Chinese, so she was like, I think I'm Canadian. Like she wasn't even 100% sure. So it's just like it's this really interesting kind of progression of identity, where I think it's almost so ingrained in our heads where we have to have that, or it's so important or a part of our identity, where we kind of forget that, and kind of what Paul says, like in Christ Jesus, there's no free or slaves, Jews or Gentiles, where, I'm a Christian. I follow Jesus Christ and I want to know Christ crucified, and that's it. You know, it's this idea where, when we have that mindset, I think, yes, ethnicity starts falling away, but we look at the person more as an individual. It's like, man, your upbringing's so interesting. Tell me more. And as you get more exposed to that, right, through that exposure, and you get to know people more just through culture, through their culture, and through how they were, their transformation story from before Christ to after Christ. It's mind blowing. You just see people in a different light. But it's really fascinating.
Yeah. And
Awesome.
in Revelation, as it describes what it's going to look like, it's people from every tribe, nation, and tongue that are there gathered together. And so if you are someone that just is in love with your mono-ethnic culture, you might be disappointed in heaven. And so start to figure out some of that now and live heaven on earth now, I think, is an encouragement. So, well, hey, thanks again, everybody, for listening to our podcast. Thanks again for both of you for being on this. If you're somebody who has questions, you can send us an email at podcast@cccomaha.org. Find us on social media at cccomaha. But until next time, we'll see you then.